Excellence in 911, What AI Adoption Can Teach Us, sponsored by Eventide Communications. Before we get started, there are just a few housekeeping notes to go over. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available online. You have joined in listen-only mode. This helps avoid background noise throughout the webinar. We want this to be as interactive as possible, so please feel free to ask your questions at any time throughout the webinar. The team will answer them at the end of the presentation. If you would like to ask a question, please use the question box in the control panel located on the right side of your screen. We will try to get to as many questions as possible. With that, I'm excited to introduce our speakers. Becky Nugent was the 88th president of APCO International and is currently the 911 director for Otaga County, Alabama. Becky's expertise ranges from high-level policy to the technical nuts and bolts of 911 centers. Since beginning her journey by transitioning Clark County to Enhanced 911, she has personally overseen the implementation of multiple generations of CAD, radio, telephone, and recording technologies. Becky holds a certificate of Emergency Communication Administration in Alabama and is a certified public safety executive. Heather Kressel is dispatch supervisor at Los Altos Police Department. She has 32 years of experience in public safety communications and has been with the Los Altos Police Department for 20 years. As dispatch supervisor, she has worked on several key initiatives, including the implementation of a new CAD system currently in progress, deployment of a modern call recording solution, development of a comprehensive quality assurance, quality improvement program for dispatch personnel, and an overhaul of the department's dispatcher training program. Casey Rives is a client solutions consultant at Eventide Communications. She brings over a decade of experience as a 911 telecommunicator and has spent the last 5 years working in public safety technology, bringing perspectives from both sides of the headset. Casey is dedicated to reducing burnout and improving the environment of 911. Now I'm going to turn it over to Casey.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lisa. I appreciate it. And thank you, Becky and Heather, for being here to do this conversation with us. We definitely appreciate it. So our overall goal today is to have a conversation about technology and AI. And we know that AI is a scary word. We were just talking about that before the conversation got started with you all here. So I wanted to just go over something ahead of time before we start the conversation. Is I know that it feels like we have had a lot of change in the past few years, especially the last year or two. But I try to remind people when we look at, 911 from when we had that first call to even getting our CAD platforms or location verification. I tell people that it wasn't until 2018 when I could even find someone that a better location of where they're at and still classified as administrative support in a lot of places. So when we look at that timeline, it feels like we're just playing a little bit of catch up, but to get where we belong and where we need to be to have the technology and the tools, resources to do our jobs effectively and to reduce that burnout as well. So I know it's moving fast, but that's why we're here today to have some conversations about how this technology is helping in the real world. Oops, I moved that slide over too fast, sorry everyone. And how these leaders have used technology. So this won't be about, critical insights specifically the entire time. We're going to be talking about how they're using Eventide's Critical Insights AI to help within their centers, with their staffing, and with their overall goals of how to succeed in their 911 center. But we're also going to have an overall perspective and conversation about technology as a whole. Again, talking about, how they got buy-in from decision makers, but also their teams and that transparency, and how they're seeing that AI and the critical insights work within their center and the success that it's having as well. So Becky, Heather, thank you again for coming in and for speaking with us. So the first question I have, Heather, is going to be kind of directed towards you. I know that, you said before that when this, people started talking about AI, you thought my center's too small. We don't need something like that. How is that going to help us? What challenges were you facing at the time where you felt the need to take the leap and, hey, AI can help a small center?
Probably the first challenge for me was even understanding the uses and the scope, because being at a smaller agency, we don't get a lot of exposure to a lot of things that are out there because it's just concentrating on getting the day-to-day thing done. And my first thought was, A, it was going to be too expensive, and B, it was going to be something that was so complicated and designed for the bigger police departments like San Jose, Los Angeles Police Department, that kind of thing. And so that was the intimidating part. And then it was going to the conferences, speaking to you and other people and learning more about it, and then realizing, okay, there's grants out there, there's ways to use the funds, there's conversations to be had to change the way the funding comes across, and front loading the cost so we could cover with grants and then having less costs at the end, and then really just jumping into what the AI could do. And the first thing that turned me on to Critical Insights was the training portion, and being able to use the training scenarios to help with our, smaller center challenges, specifically being having to train somebody to handle any call that could come across their console, with never having experienced it during training and probably not even experiencing it during their first 5 years. So it was that learning what the different tools were, getting past that fear of the scope, and then just looking at what it could do and how it could help me, and getting past that small part of it.
Right. Yeah, you bring up two good points. Obviously saying you're a smaller center, I've noticed from talking to centers all throughout the world that whether you're a large center or a small center, we all have the same problems at the end of the day that we can talk about. They might be different in how they vary, or how many calls we're getting, but at the end of the day, it's the same struggles. And then also, you mentioned the simulations. I remember when I was in the academy, it was all role playing where, someone would go out in the hallway and use a cell phone. So being able to have that type of technology to make sure that we're setting our new call takers and dispatchers up for success is a really good point as well. Becky, I'm going on to you now. So I know the state of Alabama, you mentioned this too, that they had signed the bill and to require 911 agencies to be audited on their operational performance as well. But your agency, looked at AI and Critical Insights AI ahead of that legislation. So you were kind of ahead of the game there. What drove that decision, or what challenges do you think pushed you to be ahead of that?
What pushed us to that is really, it started back in 2022 to a certain degree, because there was a mandate that came out that said that public safety telecommunicators were going to finally be certified. And so statewide, you kind of could see the writing coming on the wall. So there was some legislation that you kind of could foresee coming. We didn't know it was going to be to this degree, but Alabama, when you make telecommunicators certified, then you make them first responders. Then we had, in our county, we had a call that did not go great. So our supervisors work the floor, and we were not queuing, and we're not able to, because we were shorthanded, and still are, because we're training a lot of people. And when the supervisors are working the floor, we are not able to queue all of our calls like we should be able to. So we had to fix that. So in August, I said, I don't really care at this point what it costs. We could see the writing on the wall coming, because the legislature is coming back in. And in the state of Alabama, we do a great job in wanting the entire state to be at the same level so that we can serve all the citizens who come to our state. So we want to not have a disparity across the state. So we want to queue all of our calls. And the only way to do that is through a program like this, so that we can queue 100% of our calls. Because this legislation, we could see, is going to come. And sure enough, it presented itself about a month or so ago. And it's a House bill that came out that said you will have all of your 911 calls. You will, all of your operations, and all someone has to do is make a complaint. All the rules are not out there yet. It's not going to go into effect until October, but here it is. So that's why we had to do something.
Right. Yeah, and you know, that leads into the next question that I'm going to ask you about, you know, that you all do QA 100% of the calls there. And I often tell people that quality reviewing 100% of your calls isn't just about liability and compliance. From a wellness perspective, I think that that's your first method of, you know, really building relationships and coaching and performance too, because I know how many times, you know, a quality review would come up to me and say, hey, Casey, let's review a call you took. And instantly you're like, great, like, what did I do? Because at the end of the day, you don't have enough time to review the calls where your employees are doing a great job, even though that's 99.9% of the time. It's just those high priority calls, or maybe someone called in to complain. So 100%, not only are you that, you know, ensuring that liability and compliance, but also you're able to say, hey, I see the full picture and I see that you're doing a great job. So thank you. I recognize that. And I think that's huge. But as far as you all reviewing 100% of your calls, how do you think that using this technology shifted your team's focus from, you know, searching for those calls or that administrative workload to being able to coach and build those relationships and that performance improvement? Are you seeing those changes?
Oh, tremendously. They are able to look at their dashboard. They're able to watch be more aware of the questions that they are able to ask the callers now. They can watch how their scores are and do a better job and be more aware of that. The supervisors are able to coach more and not have to be watching every single thing. They can actually be more with their trainees and not it is just amazing to watch them be more focused on their caller instead of being so, you know, it is just, they're helping each other more. If
Right.
that, you know, they don't have to be so focused on doing all of the other background things. It is just amazing to see when you log in to see their scores go up instead of going, well, we didn't even have anything like this before. So to watch them be so happy and to encourage each other on their shifts, and it's the trainees being able to look at their scores and to see them go up and be so positive with each other is awesome.
Yeah, that's right. I think that visibility and that transparency, making them, you know, our team members a part of the process is so important as well, to have that open feedback and communication. I know a lot of people would say, I don't want 100% of my calls reviewed, like you're going to get me on every little thing, but I don't think that a lot of us realize that you are doing an amazing job, you know, most of the time, 100% of the time probably. So you're not going to see, you know, those some horrible score. It's going to be great. And if anything, you find those opportunities to train and to, you know, to get better at something. Heather.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, we're still in the rollout phase for ours, but the buy-in from my team has been a big part of it. When I first started looking, because we had never done any QA before, because we're PD only, and generally most police departments don't. It's kind of a fire medical function. And so when it came time to create this program and roll it out, I submitted to my team. I'm like, okay, what kind of questions do you think you should be judged on? What do you think it should look like? Because in the end, it's their program. They're the ones that are going to be evaluated. And if they have that input and buy-in on how the process goes, then, you know, they can be involved from day one. And we're still, again, rolling it out in just a few months in. But, you know, department wide from my entire team, they're already averaging above 90% in everything. So, you know, and one of the rollouts was for the first 3 to 6 months, everything's going to be QA'd. We'll do the more extensive QA as well, but none of it's going to go on your evaluation. None of it is going to be really counted while we see how this works. And, and just so they don't have that fear of it, and they can say, oh, I really am doing a good job, and like Becky pointed out, and have that encouragement, and it's not that scary thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference in being a great leader is you understand the importance of your team's buy-in, because if they don't like it, it's not going to work, right? Or how many times, I'm sure you guys have even seen this before you became leaders, where you feel like something was selected for you to use by people that never use it. So you're like, oh, this isn't going to work the way we need it to. So yeah, that's really important for shaping the technology to work the best for your center too. And Becky, I know you're about to say something, so I apologize.
It's okay. For them to be able to, for the trainees to be able to go in there and to use the simulations, especially if you have someone that is struggling with specific call types or situational awareness with certain calls, police calls. If you have somebody that is great at taking EMS medical calls, but they're struggling on police calls, and you can go in there and assign them specific situational calls on police things. That's the great thing is we have call taker, not specific call takers that only do call taking, but someone who may be great at call taking, but not so great at police things. And you can go in there and assign them those things. That is great for them, because you can go in there and assign them those specific calls to take. And I've got one that is doing great at taking those simulations, and it gives them that score immediately. And then you can assign them even more stringent things, and it just helps them do those. And I can't say enough good about it at this point. And we haven't been that long as well.
Continued.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. We're also going to be using the simulations for continuing training and continuing education. So even those dispatchers that have been here for 5, 10, 15 years, if you haven't had, a shooting call, or if you haven't had these really intense in progress calls, we can assign that in the simulation. And while we all know it's not the same thing, it at least gets those thoughts about it from the back of your brain to the front of your brain. And so, God forbid that does actually happen, you're not trying to remember, oh, what do I say? It's going to help with the continuing education as well as the beginning training.
No, yeah, I completely agree. And, I like that with the simulation, you can create that simulation easily from a live call that's come in by just saying, create a simulation from this and then change details, or even just write one up by yourself. And I know, you guys said, we understand that it's not a real caller, right? But the way that you respond to it and talk to it, I was playing around with it the other day, and I actually had a conversation with Nancy Lockhart yesterday. I met up with her and I said, I haven't taken a 911 call in a long time. And my body got very tense when I answered, and I was like, 911, where's your emergency? Because you're in that zone at that moment. So to me, it solidified that, hey, this is like taking a 911 call, and I am in the zone, and I am asking those questions, which leads me to this question for you, Heather, because I know you use that simulator for that training. But how do you think that that's transformed your onboarding and, preparing your center for those type of calls, or for the new employees that are coming in?
It's given us, like, in the introduction, they talked about, I'm kind of have been revamping our training program, and we've always had to, it being a smaller agency, do what I call training in the hypothetical. So while you're training somebody, you have to train them to cover or be able to handle 100% of everything that could possibly happen. But while they're in training, we're lucky if they can actually experience 30 to 40% of what they're going to be expected to have. So we're creating these scenarios, and you mentioned how easy it was to create it. It's almost too easy. Just tell the AI bot, make a training scenario based on this call, and within a couple of minutes, you have a brand new scenario ready to go that you can customize and do all kinds of things with. But I'm building a library that's going to be able to cover virtually every single call, and then you do a few tweaks on a scenario that you have to change, the demeanor of the caller, their politeness level, the background noise, all that kind of thing. And then you have another call ready to go on the same topic. And the AI bot that responds, it's not a script that it follows. It just kind of naturally goes with the flow. It feeds off of the call taker. And now you've got these hours and hours of training that really can sometimes take 15, 20 minutes to prepare. And you've given your trainee so much more than we've ever been able to give them before.
Right. Yeah, and I think the efficiency, when we know that our industry as a whole is in a staffing crisis still, it's getting a little bit better there, but knowing that we have this type of technology that can help train or help even with pre-hires, give them a sense of what the job entails, because we know that the percentages always change, but 30 to 40% of 911 call takers and dispatchers leave within the first year. Or how many times have we seen them come out of the academy and they haven't had the opportunity to take those different types of high priority calls, and they get their first one and they're instantly like, whoa, this isn't the job for me. So the more that we can let them play around with those type of calls in a secure environment and practice it and hear it, I think the better, for sure. So we're going to talk a little bit also about buy-in, kind of what we talked about making sure that our employees and our team understand what we're getting, that they are able to be a part of the process as well. Heather, how did you gain buy-in from your team? Did you address, were there a lot of concerns about AI, whether that was from, leadership or decision makers, or just, the floor staff that there's going to be using the technology?
Thankfully, AI is a discussion that's being had, I think, across most departments right now. And it's something that everybody's been talking about or considering in one way or another, from report writing to processing, calls to everything else. So it wasn't a topic that I had to introduce. And we'd also talked before we started about the word AI being that scary kind of thing. So just talking about the product and all the things that it can do. And then at the end saying, oh yeah, it uses AI to do this, but by the time you get to that point and you see all the benefits, it's not as scary. But I'm really lucky to have, I report to a captain who reports to a chief, and they're both very interested in moving towards the innovation side and being, the first or second people to try something out. We're not waiting anymore for somebody else. So it was fairly easy to convince them to let us try this and just see how it works.
Yeah, I think you made a good point about, I think it's that word, like I said in the beginning, AI, where we should be talking about, instead of, how it works or how this technology works, what the simulator does, or the automated quality, or those analytics. Because yes, that is all AI, but we need to help people understand what it's doing, right? Because I think everyone's still scared of those two letters. Becky, what advice would you give to agencies that are considering AI, especially those navigating maybe new mandates or needing greater accountability?
Well, if I could go back to the buy-in question, if I can too. One of the buy-in things for me for my team was one of the buy-ins for me for this was we have a lot of radio issues in our county, and it was the radio transcription and transcribing box in the corner, because when you hire somebody and you're training someone who's never done this before and they don't have that radio ear like veterans do, and they can put that box there and they can read, and some of the wording may not be perfect because it is AI, and we live in the South and Southernese, AI is not perfect. So don't take that as every single word, because I live in Watauga County and sometimes it doesn't read that right. But when you live in the South, a lot of people talk really Southern. So, but when you can have that box in the bottom and a new person who doesn't have a radio ear yet can see the words at the bottom, it helps a trainee understand things on the radio, and it has been so helpful for them, because when an officer is saying something, they can see it and then they can learn it, and they don't have to constantly go back and say, what did he say? What did he say? What did he say? So they're hearing it and they're seeing it and they can learn.
Right.
So that was a buy-in for my people who have been there for a long time, and it also has been helpful for the trainees that we're not getting the radio portion of being in the room and training. So that's been a buy-in too. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh yeah, no, and you bring up a great point too. Is the AI, the goal is, we say that it's 97, 98% accurate when it out of the box. But like you said, when we get into centers, of course, there's different accents or different street names, weird street names that even the people that work there probably can't pronounce. But we've made it so that it's easy where you can train it and it starts to learn that, because it's it's not anything that we're adjusting or modeling. It's from your own data and what you're teaching it as well, to make sure that it's as accurate as you want it to be. Yeah, and having that transcription, not only for new people, but even as a seasoned dispatcher, if your channel's held for a high priority event and you don't want to ask someone to repeat, or just that extra alert for certain keywords, things like that, I think that's a huge safety consideration for the first responders on scene, as well as our dispatchers.
Yeah, and I think people are scared of that. They think AI is going to take their job, but you are never going to remove the human element from 911 and the operations center. You're never going to remove that. So I think the buy-in is humans are here in operations. You're never going to remove that. So AI is just a tool to help you do your job better and to help you remove some of those duties that there are. Hey, you're here 24 hours. Let's just throw one more thing on you to do. Well, here is a tool to help you do more things in less time. I think that's just what AI is here to help you do. And so I think that's part of the buy-in.
Right. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of that fear, well, here, technology is going to take our jobs. And I agree with you that I think we'll always need our 911 call takers and dispatchers. I think we just got used to, for so long, we were the catch-all, right? If someone thinks they're most of the time calling animal control, they're actually talking to someone that also answers 911 calls or parking complaints, or you're entering warrants or tow requests, things like that. So knowing that you have this technology, like you said, to make your job a little bit easier, that way your focus is your team, is the emergencies coming in, your community, the safety of your first responders, that are going on scene as well. So it's nothing about replacing your job, it's helping you, because even heroes need help sometimes, so I think that's what it's there for. Heather, what would you say, we talked about you noticing that even small agencies can use this AI, but what would you say to small agencies that have said the same quote as you, or that think AI is not really going to be an advantage to them?
I think we all have to, the smaller the agency, I think the more, the supervisors, the managers have to try to do. And the tools that can help you not only do the jobs that you're already tasked with, but then be able to look at those things that you haven't been able to get to. One of the things, again, I'm supervising people that are working 24/7 and I'm not seeing them. There's no way that I can spend quality time with every single person that I work with on every shift. And one of the things that the CIAI does is it has the wellness component and it listens to the calls, and it has sections where one of my favorites is it's the high performance recommendations. So it'll tell you, hey, the AI bot thinks these calls were done really well. Maybe you should listen to them and talk to the call taker. And I can still remember the first time that using that, going to one of my call takers and complimenting him on a call that he did and how well it was handled. And it shocked him that so quickly after he had done it, I was coming to him to tell him, great job. I really appreciated it, and be able to talk about the details for it, which, we just don't always have time to do. And thankfully, the CIAI helped me to find that, made it easy to listen to it. I could focus in on those because it transcribed it and I knew exactly where to listen to. So I didn't have to listen to the entire call, but I could see how well it was done and then give that feedback. And on the flip side of that, It also has the, it evaluates the stress level of the conversations. So I have it set to an alert. So if somebody takes a call that's a stress level 9 or 10, I get an email or a text message so I can then go in and check on that person and make sure they're okay, and kind of keep an eye on if somebody's having to handle a variety or a large amount of these high stress calls. All right, maybe I should check on them or talk to somebody on my peer support team and say, hey, this person's taken a lot of tough calls, maybe check in with them, see how they're doing. And if they're great, great. But if they need help, we can get to them that much sooner.
Yeah, those are all great points. And, the stress identifier is something that I also love about Eventide's critical insights, because I think it's a way for us to be more proactive when it comes to wellness and peer support. As an industry, for a lot of things, we've been reactive for so long. So, you could have a plan in place, like you said, where it sets an alert and you check in after certain types of calls. Or maybe you just take note of it. So then, hey, Casey called out the last 4 shifts and that's not like her. And you go back and you look and you say, oh, actually, she's taken a lot of high priority, high stress calls. So let's implement some of our peer support or our resources that we have available. And like you said, I mean, you can't be everywhere at once. So, not having technology to help identify those, it would be impossible for you to know otherwise. That's awesome that you're seeing that.
I mean, it doesn't matter how small you are, how big you are, you're still dealing with the same problems. You're still doing the same high stress job. And we might not get, the shootings and the stabbings every day, but we get some tough calls to handle. And, having that tool to help me identify that and help me take care of my people and, the people that come after me, helping them to do it is a huge benefit. And wellness is, we all hear the buzzword and it's a big priority now, but this is something that I can actually put in place and it will actually help me accomplish those goals.
Right. And the reporting or the analytics that you're able to pull from that too. So it's not just the in the moment, but the easy reports to process what's going on in your center from a wellness or stress perspective as well. Mm-hmm. Becky, are you seeing any, of that benefit as well for the stress identifiers, or as far as from a wellness standpoint?
Of course, we have a lot of CPR calls. We had a SWAT incident not long ago. Actually, it was only about a week and a half or so ago. So, yes, we are seeing a lot of that.
Good. Well, you're next. So let's see. I know that, if you could tell a director just beginning their AI journey, because we have so many people that are still scared of AI, as we all know, and they're hesitant to adopt it. Where do they start? What do they look at, or who do they talk to? Where do they put their foot in the door to say, okay, I'm going to try to take tiptoe steps to get this started, but where do I go?
Well, you need to look at what is going to work best for their agency, number one. But you got to think about AI is here. I mean, AI has been here. But you can't be scared, and you have to look at what is going to work across the board. You can't be scared of your board. You have to just make the plunge to do it, and you can't let policies, procedures, you can't let any of that stop you from doing the best for your team, because it is here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. And you cannot let any of these processes stop you from doing the best that you have to do for your team and your citizens, because your supervisors, your operations manager, you have to find a way to queue all of your calls, because something is going to get missed if you don't. If you're only queuing 5%, then you're not queuing something. So if AI can queue all of your calls, then why not do it? It is worth the money to the citizens, to your first responders, to your team, to your trainees, to do what you need to do to make everybody better so that you can perform better for everybody. And that's what I would say. It's here to stay.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And, I think that we have such a big community that's open to have these conversations that I think one thing too is, reach out to a director like Becky or Heather that, has implemented this and maybe say, hey, can I stop by your center or can I talk to you more about this to see it working in real time? And maybe if the next step or, the real roadblock for you is the decision makers or those processes, invite those people into your center to see what it's like on a daily basis. Have them do a sit along and have them see, all the work that your employees are doing and the things that might be missed because you guys are so busy. So I think there's a few different things there that we can all lean on our 911 community for to get more information and more confidence there as well.
I think sometimes when people think about like your 911 board or whoever you answer to, I think there's always that question in the back of their mind, well, how do you discipline AI if they miss something? I think that may be a question, but you can't think about that. You put a policy in place and then you go with it, or you reach out to somebody or you go look at it, but you have to do something to where you can serve your citizens and your employees better.
I agree. All right. So I know that we want to leave some time for some questions as well. But I would say for, to round this out, and I think you guys have pinpointed this a bit, but in just one sentence, I'll start with you, Heather. How would you say AI has transformed your center?
It's given me more time to focus on the things that I forgot were important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about you, Becky?
I would 100% agree with Heather. You don't have to spend a lot of extra time worrying about what you missed.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can focus on other things, which is coaching or, because we do get alerts because you can set parameters of, okay, well, if someone scores below a certain score, you get emails to that effect. So now I don't have to go back and research those things. I get alerts to those. But guess what? Right now, nobody's getting below a score.
Right. Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Right now, nobody's getting a below, score. So that's awesome. But
Right.
you can start those. You can create those parameters. So, that's a great thing.
Yeah, and that's what I always say is your team best, so what those parameters need to be. All of this is customizable. What your form should be, what calls you should be, more focused on. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull up some of these questions. I see that we have one in the chat from Mike who's asked about running studies for the accuracy rate of the AI evaluations. As far as specific studies, I would have to look more into that, but I know that like I mentioned before, we say anywhere from 97 to 98% as far as the accuracy with, having our customers be able to tune to the effect that they need as well, like Becky mentioned. But also within Critical Insights AI, on each form, there's a color box next to the answer that the AI has answered to show you the AI's confidence level. Because we want the AI to be, very transparent and saying, hey, I'm 100% confident in how I responded to this. Or if it's yellow, that means, hey, I'm not 100% that I got the answer to this. And if it's red, it means definitely go back and listen. I very rarely have seen, any red or yellow, but that's there because we want that transparency. And I'm sure Becky and Heather can speak on this more because they're actually using those, AI evaluations. Heather, you made a good point that when you first implemented it, you kind of let it run for a little bit before you let it start, it's not going to affect your scores or anything like that to make sure it's working. Could you speak on that at all?
Sure. So I currently have it set up to where it's we're doing QA on every single call, but then the calls that actually the scores that are going to go into the evaluation are the 5% evaluations. And for those, I try to do it's set at 5% of their calls. I just pick a number each month because it changes. And then you initiate the QA. The AI goes through as you're watching it, and like you said, it gives you the green, yellow, red. It gives a reason for every answer. Then you can go back and verify it. And what I'm finding for anything that's either an answer I don't agree with, it's because like the call taker put the call on hold for a long time. So the AI thought, oh, this was a new call. So they, gave them a negative score for proper greeting. So then I can go back and I can change that and say NA because it's not applicable here. But it's really easy because the AI does all the work. You go back through and verify it. And if the AI says it's good, most of the time I trust it. I double check every once in a while, but it gives you the transcript and you see exactly. I gave it, the AI says, I'm giving the AI a personality. It's scored this way because of this reason. And it makes sense. And then you can send it to the employee and they see the entire evaluation. They see what the AI said for the reasons. They see the transcript. They can listen to the call. So if they have anything that they don't agree with, hopefully we've caught it before it gets to them, but they can see exactly why everything was scored the way it was right there in the eval. So that does help. To Mike's question about the appeals. So far, I haven't really had to deal with any because everybody said, oh, okay, that makes sense. Becky, you probably have had a lot more time in it, but it's so laid out and so, for want of a better word, transparent. There's nothing that isn't right in front of you.
One of the things, and we're doing the same thing, we're queuing 100% of our calls, and then we're doing the 5%. We're also have the red, yellow, green. We can go in there when we do the 5%, and we can go in if we see where it'll say NA, and we go, well, you see where they did ask they tried to get a phone number twice, because that's in our policy. You try and get the phone number twice, and they tried, and the person just was so panicked that they couldn't get the phone number twice. We give them credit because, if the call taker tried to get the phone number, but the person just wouldn't, it's not the call taker's fault that they couldn't get the phone number. So we will override AI because they tried. So there are concessions that we can go in there, and then you can go in there and tell AI, you can override or whatever, or tell it, I'm giving AI a personality too. Tell her or he. But you can go in there, make concessions. And one of the things that we have done is every time we answer 911, we say, Atauga 911, state your location. And every time we did that, it always said it wrong and would not give them credit because Atauga always. So we just took that out and just said, state your location. And now it's picking up that they're getting that correct. So you can change those to where now AI, Mr. or Mrs. AI is doing it correctly now. So there are things that you can teach AI to do correctly. So
yeah, and sometimes it's about, having those initial questions or forms in there, and then, like you said, seeing what works or what doesn't. For instance, you could put the AI the question to say, as long as the call taker asked it twice, then they tried, even if they weren't able to obtain it or things like that. So we have two questions that are kind of similar. You guys could pick who wants to take it, but where do you think that human expertise still consistently outperforms technology? Or another way it was written was, do you see areas where human reviewers can provide more accurate or meaningful evaluations? And I would say that that's that follow-up, that coaching that you now have time for. But what would you say?
So I would say for the QA questions, I've with Eventide's help taken care to, it's a lot of like the yes or no. Did they do this or did they not do this? So the AI isn't having to answer those more profound questions. It's just, did they answer the call properly? And it does learn. So like when I've had to, like a call's been put on hold and the AI thinks it's a new call, I've been able to teach it, no, this call was placed on hold and then picked up. So this doesn't apply to this question. And so now it's starting to catch that more. So when it sounds like the person was on hold and it picks up, oh, okay, it's not, it's giving it an NA instead of a no, did not properly answer. So by keeping the question simple, you kind of take that ask of the AI to be more human, you're taking it out of it. And then the like Becky was saying, the coaching and the further evaluation of it, that's on me, or that's on the evaluator, not on the AI. They do the basics and then I do the further digging into it.
Right. I think that's where it goes back to, those portions where we say AI taking our jobs, but also that human, the technology's there to do what the technology does, and the human's always going to be there for that coaching or for that actual, review of the contents of that evaluation. I think that's that important part of having that sit down or that back and forth with your employee to make sure that you're coaching them through it. Mm-hmm. Let's see what else. Oh, Becky, did you have anything?
Well, I was just gonna, I read ahead to one of the questions about tone of voice, and there is that question in there about, did the call taker remain calm? There is that one in there. So the calmness of.
Yeah, I've seen the questions in there for, courteous. So the AI doesn't judge specifically on, keywords. It's the entire intent of the call, the contents of the call. So not only do you have that full transcription as well, you also get, a 2 or 3 sentence summary to tell you what the entire call was about. But it is able to evaluate, were they courteous or were they calm? Did they reassure? Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I don't see any more questions coming. I'm going to check the other question box to be sure. Oh. There we go. Noah asked, have you seen any changes in retention or engagement from your team members? I know this is both relatively, newer in your centers, but have you seen how that's affected? I know definitely probably engagement, Becky, you talked about, but retention and engagement.
Engagement, they are all logging into the dashboard every day. They are, because Eventide started, they installed it in January and they started running numbers and stuff in the background. And we started using, I think we went live then, but then we started learning on how to use it. So we have not had it that long either. So they're all using it. They're all logging into the dashboard. They're all watching their numbers go up and down. So they are definitely engaging it. So we haven't had it long enough to really gauge retention or anything, but they are engaging it. And they all are asking questions. They're using the simulations. The trainees are using it. But as far as retention, I can't answer that question.
Yeah, that'll be
for us.
Interesting follow-up in, a year or so to see how the effect of this technology and critical insights being able to do all those evaluations or with that engagement you all are seeing how that is helping retention. And sorry, Heather, I know you were about to say something as well.
No, I was just gonna say it's the same for us. We haven't had it long enough, but I will say that there is excitement and there's a hopefulness in a lot of, especially the trainers, because they know here's another tool that they can use, that we can build stronger dispatchers, that we can give the trainees that confidence earlier that they've at least touched these things. And even though I don't have any metrics to show, I'm sure that that's going to help with retention in the end, because we're going to be building stronger dispatchers to start, and we're going to be keeping them strong because we can use these tools to give meaningful feedback based on actual metrics, rather than well, nobody's complained about you in the last 6 months, so you must be doing fine, or that kind of thing. And it's going to make I think it's going to make a big difference. I am confident on that.
I think the people all the trainers who do the PST certification through APCO I cannot wait to teach my next PST class so that I can use these simulations in my next training class, because if you've never played woo woo in your PST classes where you've had to play one of the scenarios and you're just doing it on paper, or you're like, okay, well, 911, what's your emergency? You can now have a simulation where you're the call taker and AI is playing with you live. You can use this in your classroom and you can get a score for your trainee right then. So this is another tool and a way unto which you can use that in your training classes, because if I had this way back when, you could have used it instead of just doing woo woo. That's what we called it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, is we would have, one of the academy instructors go in the hallway on a cell phone and call you, and, you'd have other academy instructors in the background screaming, so it seemed more lifelike, and it was a whole get up. So you don't get to practice your acting career as much, but I think it's a more efficient, better way to train for sure.
Right.
We do have Emily. I know we touched on this a little bit, but it goes back to, what your staff thought about AI at first, and if there was any pushback.
We didn't have any, no. Knock on wood, it's still fairly new, but we're doing well.
All right.
Mine did not either.
Good. All right. And I think the last question, because I know we're almost at time, and we do have a short video that Lisa's going to play right before we end everything, if you guys could hang on there. But Madeline asked about the stress level scale for call takers, and how does the AI determine this? So Eventide actually has patented technology where they worked with, outside professionals and those that are experts in stress identification and mental health to identify certain points in a call that recognizes as being more stressful. So it's not, a certain keyword or one point in the call. It's several different areas. And so those combined together is what overall creates that stress level. And we always tell people, hey, this is just another tool to be more proactive than reactive. Unless we have heart monitors on every single call taker, we're never going to know truly the stress level, right? Because Becky might find, a dog getting ran over more stressful, and Heather might find the child CPR more stressful because just from their backgrounds or something like that. But at the end of the day, this is based on experts and research that went into this technology to make sure that we are identifying those stress levels. Have you guys seen that being fairly accurate, or identifying those higher stress calls for you?
Definitely. I'll every once in a while, when I see the ones that are on the higher level, I'll click on it and listen, and it's everyone I've listened to, it's spot on that there's some stress there, and I haven't seen it misidentify anything. So I'm going to be relying on that fairly confidently. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. And usually it's, with staffing too, if there's, because right now we're shorthanded, so a specific time there's only two people there. So the stress is not only about the call itself, but when there's only two of them there. So then it's a heightened stress call and stress level of only two. So then it's like bam, bam, bam.
Right. Yeah, well, I think that's all the Q&As, and if there's any more follow-ups, we're happy to, feel free to reach out to either of us. I'm sure Becky and Heather are happy to have those conversations as well. So Becky, Heather, I want to thank you both for joining me in this conversation. Thank you both for being leaders in 911. I know that we're going through a lot of changes right now, and you guys are shaping not only the now, but the future of, the success of 911 and creating an environment where our 911 telecommunicators can really thrive in. And all of you that are on today, thank you too for what you do every day. We see you, we appreciate you. I know that it's not an easy job, but hopefully technology like Critical Insights is making your job a little bit easier. so that we can be more successful and stay longer. Thank you very much. And Lisa, I know that you had that video up for us to play, so we'll go ahead and play that to end out the conversation.
Yes, just one moment.
In an environment saturated with data, amidst uncertainty, noise, and change, you need a foundation you can trust. Confidence begins here with the Nextlog DX series recorder. Trusted, supported locally, defined by engineering excellence. When your reputation is on the line, when decisions depend on what was said, seen, or missed, when you don't know what you'll need 5 years from now, your foundation must be secure, reliable, intelligent. It must capture the truth. Every call, every screen, every piece of data. So responsibility is never in question for corporate security, public safety, defense, and air traffic control. And integration? Seamless. Built on this foundation is the future. Critical Insights AI helps you do more with less. Automate processes, optimize resources, improve center performance. Train and protect your people before they burn out. After all, retention starts with support. Nextlog DX series, your full ecosystem recorder. Critical Insights AI, the recorder you trust, the intelligence you need. Eventide Communications, clarity captured.
All right, we are going to wrap up now. Thank you to our presenters, to our sponsor, Eventide Communications, and thank you everyone for joining us today. This concludes our webinar.